Hello everybody, I'm here to talk about Devil Saviour Compressor and the sad tragedy that befell the one that I got. I'm just showing you the construction of one of the legs. This is the one that didn't break, but I still took it apart because my plan is to get weaker springs. I've tried to source them, we'll see if I succeeded. But these springs that came with it are very, very hard to compress. And in fairness to their design, this one looks fine. There's no stress marks on it or anything. It's coming across a little bright here. I can move the lights back a little bit too. But there's no stress marks on the part, and it's solid. This one I've already started to modify it so that I can still maybe try to shoot this thing. So in this case, I've shaved down where the part broke off, and I've drilled a hole. Here's the part that broke off. So it was here. And it just... It doesn't look right. It's almost like maybe what happened more than anything is that when this was molded, it had like a flaw in it. But part of the problem you run into with this is, I wish I had one assembled right now because it would make it a little more comprehensible. But so you have this thing. Of course, this is the this is the right leg, and it all assembles like this. Of course, it's got the bit where it slides, so that goes like that. I'm kind of leaving the spring and the gears and stuff out just to put this together for you. Give you an idea what sorts of stresses this thing faces. So this goes together, and then I don't want to lose any of these screws here, but this screws on. It's got a bunch of screws. And of course the gear would actually be packed in it if I was doing that, and this is the big screw that holds the... But the problem this thing faces is you have your rotation joint here, and here's the hip. I just feel like I have this backwards because anyway, it doesn't much matter. I'll sort out which one's which. Later. But this goes in to the hip joint here. It's got its own springs or its own gears that ride inside the joint. Of course, there's the broken one. I'll just kind of show you that they're asymmetrical. One tabs into the other one. Of course, you would want to put the other gear on here. And there's a spring that rides, a big spring that rides in between them. So that's a very stiff spring. And the problem you run into is because I'm trying to keep my parts organized so I don't forget what goes with what. But this is a very stiff joint when it's ratcheted, so it's like chunk, chunk, chunk. And so that pulls, that can pull on, this stem in that direction, pull it like that. And then of course when you rotate this, that creates a twisting force on the stem. And that's all potentially problematic. So what happened is the stem got, pulled on from this, and then also got twisted. And it was when I was rotating it back into position, I was turning it. I'd gone from vehicle mode to robot mode to combined mode, all of which require some hip manipulation. And I was turning the hips back for vehicle mode, and that's when it twisted off, and I was like, you son of a bitch. So what I'm doing to try to correct it, or at least cobble it together, is I need to get out to the garage to hacksaw this bolt shorter. But I've already got the hole set, so the bolt's a little bit bigger than the hole. So I could thread it on and not do anything else, but I do have a nut to go with the bolt. The only problem is maybe the spring won't fit in there when the nut's applied, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to shake out. But there's no point in doing any of it until the springs I bought that are hopefully weaker springs arrive. So there's not much to do until then. But that's what's going on with Compresor. Devil Saviour really does have very good aftermarket or after sales support. I haven't gotten around to using it. Where is it? On my desk here somewhere. But back in the day, I mean, it does break. It's like 2 out of 3 broken. But this part broke. One of these broke on. This is the green guy, the foot. And they sent me this whole bit, and I've been putting it off because it kind of holds together, even though it's broken. And it's broken in the video. But this is a lot of taking it apart that I'm going to have to do. That's a lot of taking it apart. I could maybe drive out the pin here and just replace this part, but they send you like a whole subsection to try to get you the right part. And this did take a couple of months to get, so you can see where I'm hoping to cobble this thing together so I can at least shoot the sequence without having to wait for the right part. But in the process, I'm trying to do it in such a way, like the guy at the hardware store is like, well, could you change the size of this if the bolt's too big? And I was like, I don't want to like mess this up, because what if I sent them a picture of just this part. So what if they send me just this part? I don't want to have all the other parts like modified and screwed up and stuff. Same reason I don't want to try to mess around with like using a blowtorch to heat up the spring and compress it a little bit so that it's a little shorter. I don't want to mess with the springs, so I'm trying to source, like I said, replacement springs, other springs. I don't know when they'll arrive. I've never dealt with a spring company before. But other than that snafu, it's a nice figure. It's got a fairly straightforward transformation, not too complicated. And I look forward to shooting that. I did go ahead and order an X-Transbots Andros, the Scourge. I've always kind of wanted one, and if that arrives in time, maybe that's what I'll shoot this weekend. If the springs arrive in time, I'll shoot this. But like I said, I don't want to put the whole thing back together without springs that are maybe a little less strong. And of course, this side won't be sprung at all. It'll just be kind of a friction joint temporarily. But I think it'll hold together well enough for the video. But if I do springs, like imagine, you've got this. Imagine having this all assembled, and then having the same spring there. That could be bad. That wouldn't hold together, I don't think. But I did a test fitting where I took one of these and put it together without the spring entirely, and it's floppy. It's a completely loose joint in that condition. So that wouldn't do. You can't just not have a spring. Anyway, that's my repair story. No, I don't have 2 of them. I have this one. It's in pieces, so there's one leg, etc. Here's the other leg. This is the leg that broke. Yeah, so this plate goes here. And technically, since this is the knee, this is like the front of the leg this way. Yeah. This all gets kind of turned around, but this is the front of the leg. And then this bit is supposed to orient in this direction. Anyway. it's a bummer to be sure. It's really hard to repair something like that bears a lot of force, you know, like transformation joint and hip joint like that. The flip side, of course, is that things that aren't important, that could easily be repaired, hardly ever break. I mean, I suppose you could have an antenna break off of a character, just something cosmetic, and you could glue that back on. That's super glue, no problem. You know, trim pieces are no problem, but these sorts of joints are very hard to make functional again. I'm going to do my best to do it. You can see I already cored it out. This thing actually does thread into it too, but I don't know how well the threads would hold, you know, in plastic. It would be questionable. But I do have to cut this down because it's going to stick way too far in. It would interfere with the spring. Ostensibly, what we would talk about this week is this RC. It's a nice little RC, so we may as well have a little chit-chat about her. This, of course, is a 1-to-1 exact KO of Transformers Prime, what would you call it, first edition RC. It's not the later one that came out that was simplified. It's got a real nice sort of metallic, almost anodized finish, although there are places, you can see there, where it's chipped. So the paint kind of chips off, unfortunately. But it looks nice. She's real pretty. Shozi said, hey, you want one? You know, I guess they had an extra, or they wanted to promote it. And I was like, well, I do shoot the Transformer Prime figures, and you know, may as well get around to shooting RC if it's going to be a nice metallic finish like that. I'm a little ambivalent about KOs because, you know, someone else designed it. Who do you credit with the design? But it's a pretty cool figure if you get a chance to pick something up. All these Transformer Prime, these Prime First Edition figures were like the last figures that were not hollow and constructed, you know, properly and elaborately. If you wanted to make it easier to transform before you broke it, then you would have to take it apart. It's quite a chore. To be clear, this is the hip pack, and you know, you've got 4 screws. Those are easy enough to take out. You have your springs and gears and shit packed in there. But the biggest problem I had was realizing that this, and I think it goes the other way, yeah. But this is partially held together by a big pin. So I actually had to take my small screwdriver and an impromptu hammer. It was actually, I had this sitting around. It's just got a heavy base, but it's like one of those stop motion armatures, but I was like whack, whack, whack. But you can drive the pin out, and you know, but the pin holds the thing together partially, so you have to drive the pin out to get it disassembled. So that was the most challenging part of disassembling it. But if you were so inclined, I had to order more springs than I would want because they had a minimum order. If the springs work right, you know, maybe people could approach me and I'd sell them the extra springs and help them understand how to replace them. But I think if there were weaker springs, it would have gone better. But like I said, this, back when I was still able to kind of, it's missing part of its form now, but when I was able to kind of hold this together and look at it, it looked like there were like flaws and cracks in the plastic itself beyond just the plastic, you know, shearing off. So I really have to wonder if this thing had been, when it was molded, it had like a flaw in it and just waiting to erupt when pressure was applied. Nothing elaborate. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I was transforming it. I transformed it from, it comes in vehicle mode because that's the most packed up version. I put it in robot mode, and I, you know, kind of, you know, you have to tweak the legs to and they were scary. Like the hip rotation is like, you know, it was quite a thing. The teeth, the gears for the rotation are quite they're quite deep. They're quite large teeth and a quite heavy spring. And all that combined with the, sort of that narrow, I guess I could focus on the one that's in one piece. Where is it? Here it is. But quite a narrow, they even have like those sorts of weight reducing, it's actually kind of like plastic veins. I think they would have been smarter to make it out of a solid piece of plastic, but that might be a limitation in my knowledge of how plastic is molded. Maybe it would actually make it weaker if it was a solid piece. But I was transforming it to a robot. I posed it a little bit, and then I transformed it into combine mode, which also requires you to like straighten the legs out and rotate them around. So it's, chuk, 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 chuk. Very hard to do, very hard to move them. And then, like I said, when I was heading back to vehicle mode, I was just, rotating them around and setting them back, and it ripped right off. Well, you're still going to see this video. I'm just waiting for the springs to arrive, and of course it's contingent upon the springs actually succeeding, like being a little bit weaker and working. If the springs work out, then I might be able to shoot this next Sunday. But this Sunday I'm going to have to come up with something else. I think given Chosen Prime's capability of shipping things out quickly, I'll probably get X-Transbots, Andros, or Scourge in time to shoot this Sunday. Hopefully I'll get it Saturday so I have some time to mess with it before I shoot it. But this thing I might be able to shoot next weekend if everything works out. Otherwise I'll have to wait for this part to be replaced, or the whole hip assembly, or however they might send me a big chunk, kind of like this, where it's like multiple parts already assembled. I might have to wait for that, and it could be a couple of months then. But at least we'll eventually shoot this before the whole thing comes out. But it is a bit of a shame. I just need it to hold together just well enough to shoot it and for it to stand. I can't leave the springs out. It won't stand with the springs out. And I don't think I can really transform it with the springs. These springs in. These springs are just they're too strong. Yeah, I don't know how much force that is, but it's quite a stiff spring. Yeah, taking a pin out's not a problem. For those of you just listening to this, someone mentioned using a soldering iron, but I have this little micro screwdriver. I hardly ever use the smallest one, and I had the whole thing sideways, and it still had the other leg on, so it was supported and level and even. And I took this screwdriver and I hammered it in, and it pushed the pin out. No problem. You don't have to mess around with a soldering iron or anything like that. You just have to push the pin out. It's not that hard. It's a pain in the ass. I'd rather not push a pin out to take this apart, especially when there's already 4 screws there, but that's actually what holds it on. And it goes this way, because this side has this flap, which engages with that tab, and then this side has the flap built into it that engages with this top tab. So it definitely goes this way. And then I just have to work out which way this is the front of the robot, and I can tell which leg was which because this is the front of the robot. So this is the leg that was good. The right leg is the one that I still have all the parts for, and it's functional. And it was the left leg that broke off because I'd already put together the back of the truck, and I was just, bringing the legs around to line them up and get them transformed, and that's when it broke off. And it was this one, the left leg, that broke off. But even Show Z was mentioning that Devil Saviour is pretty good about after sales care. I guess they should be if they're going to have a flaw like that in the design or in the injection molded plastic part or whatever. We're only 20 minutes in right now. I mean, I can transform this if you want. She's pretty cool. I like her. I had to tighten all her joints. She came pretty loose. I had to put a little super glue in all the joints so that she would be a little stiffer for stop motion. The head goes away inside there. You might think you should turn it around or something like that, but it's best not to mess with it. Just put it away directly. What is the focus on this? Too far. But you put the head away and then you put it back. Put it back in. Like that. This flips around. A little easier to get it through when you have the handlebars put away, so that's why I'm only just now getting the handlebars out. And then this tab's on there. This tab's on there. It's gonna be a bit of a trick to make sure that it's lined up properly, because there's a lot of little joints there that articulate. You got to get everything in the right position for everything to line up. You can see it's chipped a little in the front here. I didn't even pry at it. It's just chipped because it's a sharp edge. The paint didn't want to stay. And then I like to flip these up past the arms, get them out of the way. Because the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you tab. You want to make sure you tab the arm in to that tab. And then you kind of fold the hand like that. Leaving those up for now. Same thing here. We're going to rotate the arm around, flip it up, and tab it. In the original toy, they did try to go with like this fancy paint job, so the original toy didn't have a flaking problem. But it's not a very complicated design. That's why I'm just kind of glossing over it, because I think the stop motion video kind of shows it. This zigzags up, the foot goes away, and this flips around. And then you can bring both legs together. Make sure the wheels, you get half a wheel for each side, then you line those up. And then we bring this up. There's these sort of decorative pieces on her arms. You just want to make sure they actually kind of go inside the legs. And then this lowers down and can be tabbed. And once you get both sides tabbed, it kind of holds it together. There's a little bit of a, you have to kind of push on it to get it to all tab together, and I don't remember the original toy having that limitation, so this thing might not have the same clearances as the original toy. But she makes for a good motorcycle. Pretty good motorcycle bot. One of the better ones. Yeah, the cartoon, the shoulders weren't as big. But, you know, you have to make compromises. Otherwise, she'd end up with like a big backpack if you tried to get rid of the shoulders, and maybe there would be additional unwanted changes to the motorcycle if you were trying to hide pseudo, like false shoulder bits inside the motorcycle. So it's like a compromise. They're trying to do their best to match the animation. The motorcycle ends up a little too wide because her arms are there. But it looks pretty good. It's a decent motorcycle bot. A lot of motorcycle bots are kind of effed up because they don't have a lot to work with. That's true. Yeah, the head crest can get messed up. What my Skierian Prime was talking about. I have to transform her back anyway, so just set that loose. Get these out of the way. flip these around, flip the feet out, and you compress this down on that double hinge. This one doesn't want to line up properly. I toyed with the idea that maybe these wheels are supposed to be rotated like another notch in, but it really is tough to do that both at the same time, because it already wants to get caught on that piece, that blue tab there, and then you're trying to get the wheel like inside this wheel well, and I don't know. It's hard to do, and it makes me think that's not right, so I just leave it like that. But for some reason, this foot, when you transform it in, it sits a little better than the other one does. So this one sits straight and this one's crooked for some reason. There's some deformity in the plastic somewhere. Let me flip that down and rotate that around. And flip her hands out, untab them, lower them down a little bit to get them out of the way. This is her back and not her front, so rotate the forearms around. What Muscarian Prime was talking about was how there's not a lot of room for her head. So it likes to be this way as much as you can to put the legs and stuff away. But to extract her head, it actually helps to kind of pull it in this direction and then fold this down. That way this crest on the back of her head doesn't get caught, because it ends up kind of parked up in there. So pull it down and then pull it up, and then you can get the head out. I have to get this separated first. These don't like to go by unless you can get the handlebars and everything out of the way, so it just helps to do that. And then these fly to the front. The head, of course, we're actually going to get it up now. There we go. It goes over the fuel tank, and her boobs come down, and then this folds flat, and this flips over and folds down. And then you can just, arrange her shoulders and her arms and stuff. But she'll probably just go on the Transformers Prime shelf as another example of RC. I've got the pink one and the blue one already, so now I've got like the metallic blue one. It's kind of cool. There we go. I've officially done the figure that I shot 2 weeks ago. I still want to say last week, but I'm always putting my newest video on locals for anyone that wants to support my endeavor. Got to give them something, so I give them the videos first. It's like I think part of the problem is the camera's got it too far in. I'm having trouble pulling a proper focus on it. Let's see, if I go this direction, that's way too far. 13, I don't know. About me loaning you my Zeta Toys Cliff Jumper. I can't do that because he's a very newly released figure and only 4 in the world own him. I extremely needed him for my BB. Hey, I just brought it up. I've had people loan me stuff before because they wanted to see their stuff shot. I had a guy that wanted to promote like his photo image. It wasn't like Instagram, but it was some predecessor to Instagram. But he wanted to promote it, so I promoted it. You can go back and see like the two what were they? DX9 Chigger and DX9 Gewalt. Those were both his. I'm not gonna get the Zeta design. I've already got too many of that sort of Bumblebee design, and I've already signed up for the Transcraft one because although the Volkswagen, the Bug, kind of looks ugly, I am gonna get that because the transformation design on that is really clever. But I have I'm getting the Transcraft. I have the original Takara one, and I have the who made that one? It was it's the other Bumblebee I did in the last year. Got all the Autobots from the Bumblebee movie. It's hard to... Yeah, I mean, I would send it back to you. You understand. you don't have to just give it to me. But it's fine. I don't need to shoot it. I've done enough bumblebees, and I've got one more coming, so I've got enough bumblebees done. Yeah, are you talking about recreating these in diecast? It could be a challenge, but good luck. Let me know if you do, because they're probably going to be pretty in demand for replacement parts. I'll let you know if this. I'll let everyone know if the spring thing works out, and I'll tell you what springs I bought if it turns out to be the right ones. It's a bit of a guessing game because you can get the. I tried to get this exact set of parameters, like the thickness of the spring and the diameter of the spring and the height of the spring. But what I did is I tuned down the thickness. So I ordered springs that are a thinner wire, and I imagine they're going to be less stiff. And maybe that'll be the right idea. I don't know. Maybe it was just a plastic flaw, but other people's have had their hips break, so I'm thinking it's a design flaw. It's fine, Miss Kirian. I didn't even realize you're the same person that I mentioned that to. Just someone asked me to do a video of a figure that I don't intend to get. A lot of times I'll just be like, well, you can loan it to me. You probably took me more seriously than most people have, because most people don't even reply. I'm looking forward to that Transcraft Bumblebee, though. Pretty clever design, despite the hinges, visible hinges in vehicle mode. But the way it packs, the way it packs up is clever. It's bugging me. Like, what was the video that I did that was a Bumblebee? Who was that? It wasn't Zeta. It was it's yellow. I'm looking for it. Transform Element. Transform Element is the Bumblebee that I did. Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to see your custom Bumblebee or your custom Wheeljack one of these days. You customizers amaze me. I get frustrated when I just have to fix something, let alone trying to customize it. I routed out that hole with my trusty Dremel. If you're trying to fix figures, it helps to have a Dremel. You can do all kinds of stuff with a Dremel. I couldn't find my larger drill bits, so I just kind of eyeballed it, and it just needs to be kind of straight enough. So I made it big enough until the threads started to catch, and I was like, that'll do. That'll do for now. I don't know that this is screwing in straight. It's pretty straight. Pretty straight. Hopefully that works out. Hopefully the springs work out, and I can reassemble this thing and at least shoot it. And then wait until I get the replacement part, and then stick the replacement part on my desk and not actually replace it, because it's more trouble than it's worth. Yeah, it's a lot of work. You're a busy Mysterian Prime, aren't you? Anyway, I don't have much else to say about this stuff. This weekend on YouTube, we're going to see Mastermind Creations Ultio. Kind of a cool figure from their IDW line of figures. I just thought it was kind of cool, so I picked it up. Then what I'll be shooting this weekend is probably Andros, so that'll show up on Locals, and then the following week will show up on YouTube. And then maybe 2 weeks from now I'll be able to shoot this, if I'm lucky. And that means it'll show up on YouTube 3 weeks from now. But it was eventually going to show up, and it eventually will. Even if I have to wait for the part, I'll eventually shoot it. So I'm still getting them. They're okay. They're decent figures. They have a bit of a Toy World vibe, especially with the clearances, especially with Split. I'm never going to transform Split again. My Skirian Prime 100. Let me look you up on Instagram. So you already got pictures of it? Here I go. Going to Instagram. Gonna search for it. Here I go. There was already a Myskerian Prime. You had to put 100 after it. What are the chances? My Scary. Yeah, there you are. Myskerian Prime 100. Let's see. So I'll follow you. So you're getting promoted anyway. How about that? Did you say you already had a picture of your wheeljack, or am I waiting for one? You'll have to tell me in a minute. I see you're pleased with your Zeta. So here's like a preview image of your Bumblebee movie wheeljack. I see you're being sneaky about it. Did you paint Blitzwing to look like? That's fun. It looks a lot more like Blitzwing when you actually paint it like Blitzwing. That's funny. Oof. You have Fans Toys Rouge? Oof. I mean, it looks nice, but it's probably the best example I have of a Fans Toys figure that I handled that was like a floppy mess in between transforming it. Alright, gang. Well, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate y'all dropping by and chatting with me. Commiserating with my poor broken figure, but we'll get there. That's it. Look for MMC Ultio on YouTube on Sunday. Look for Andros on Locals on Sunday. And then that'll be on YouTube the following Sunday. That's it. Have a good Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, Saturday. Always have these awkward sign-offs where I just like end right in the middle of talking.